I'm delighted to have back on the show Will Flanders. He is the ninja research nerd at Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty on education policy. And I say that with love. Will, thank you for joining me again on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I get all these things, accolades I should write on my plaque on my door. That's another one.
Yeah, put on your business card, Ninja Research Nerd. All right.
There you go.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the new school choice. This is a pretty remarkable, noteworthy study that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty did, and I want to dive into it. And I want people, as we're talking, to understand that there are multiple cities and the lead candidate for Democrats for governor, Francesca Hong, looking to undermine the school choice program. And they're coming up with all kinds of excuses on why they want to do it. We'll get to specifics of what they're trying to do here in a sec. But what your research did was look at the impact of the school choice program over time, not just a snapshot of 1 year, 6 months or a year after some kid transfers. But you looked at what happens when those kids stay in those choice schools. And what did you find out?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I'll also note, for the first time that I've been able to work with data in 10 years in Wisconsin, we had student-level data. So we were able to compare students in the public schools directly with students in the choice schools that are similar on a number of demographic dimensions. And what we found out is that over time, over 4 years of data that we looked at, you see in the first couple years, some of those kids are behind because they're choosing a new school because they're not getting something they need from their traditional public school. But if they stay in the school for 3 or 4 years, if they stay in the school choice program, then we see real meaningful academic gains. We see over a year of additional learning in the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program and the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program. And then in the Racine Parental Choice Program, we see 1.85, almost 2 years of additional learning over 4 years from participation in school choice. And again, these are students that are comparable with students in public schools.
That's
so
amazing.
It's hard to make the argument that it's some creaming of the crop.
Yes. So these are poor kids in the Milwaukee program and in the Racine program in particular. I don't have as much experience knowing people in the Wisconsin overall program, but these are kids who are way behind. These are not kids who are academically outstanding. These are kids who are poor, whose parents, for one reason or another, have chosen a Milwaukee or Racine school choice program, and they're getting 1 extra year of education during the same time period in the Milwaukee program and 2 extra years of education in the same time period in the Racine program. 2 years. I mean, which means we should go look at what Racine's doing so much better than Milwaukee, but it could just be that the demographic challenges are so much worse in Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And by the way, with the statewide program, remember, we want to remove the income caps. We do have an income limit of 220%. So the statewide results are also looking at generally low income or very low middle income students. And yeah, you don't see many things. There are a few interventions in education that have that large of an impact, that are a year of gains over 4 years. It's very meaningful, not only for just academic achievement, but for also the long-term life prospects of these students, right? If you move that far ahead, you're more likely to be able to get a good job. You could probably actually read. That would be a good start. And that helps in the workforce, more likely to be able to go to college and succeed there as well.
Yes, if you're actually 2 years ahead, you're probably actually reading. Maybe not reading at exceptional levels. Again, we're talking about kids way behind the 8 ball here, but you're reading. And that's one of the biggest problems, particularly in Milwaukee and Racine and some of these other school areas, is that kids who are qualifying for the school choice program are stuck in schools that have high levels of illiteracy, functional illiteracy, and actual real cannot read a word illiteracy. So that is meaningful in so many different ways. You've actually done studies that also show that kids in these programs, in these school choice programs, have a better mastery of discipline, have less likelihood of encountering law enforcement, have better outcomes when it comes to high school graduation, job retention, things like that. Soft things we don't measure with education.
Yeah, all those are spillover effects from a school that actually functions, right? These are things that when you're in an orderly classroom, teaching can happen. Students are actually able to absorb the information rather than being distracted by the student who is misbehaving, maybe throwing things at the teacher, gets sent to the office and is back in 5 minutes. Kids can't learn in an environment like that. So these schools in general, of course, again, they're probably exceptions, are more orderly. They're able to bring morality in a lot more easily because of the ability to, engage in, religious discussions, and all these factors together mold students who are just more prepared for life beyond K-12.
So what we see now, Francesca Hong, who's running for governor, is manifestly against the school choice program. She wants to eliminate the school choice program entirely. And now you see multiple cities, and I'll go through some of the ones you may actually have heard of, some new ones: Wauwatosa, Madison, Green Bay, Racine. I think you mentioned Oconomowoc to me, Neenah, Appleton. They all want to put on the property tax bill the, quote, cost of school choice. Out of context, cost of school choice. School choice costs 60% of traditional K-12. You get a 40% discount for students in these programs from traditional K-12 schools. But what these cities want to do is make it look like you're paying extra. So they want a line item on the property tax bill. And this is being run as an advocacy operation by the teachers union and other leftist organizations. Meanwhile, their handpicked candidate wants to dismantle this program entirely. And I mean, the honest thing would be to say, here's what you've saved and here's what you've gained. But nobody talks about that, including the press.
Yeah, we finally have new public school spending data. We're up to $18,746 per student on average in public schools. That's even $200 more than what we were spending the previous year. Our voucher programs, as you said, our K-8 voucher is more than $5,000 less. The K-12 voucher, the high school voucher is more than $5,000 less. The K-8 voucher is even a bigger gap than that. And yet we're seeing additional years of learning taking place at thousands of dollars less per student. So, yeah, you hear about candidates that want to end school choice or that it's draining resources from public schools. What they ought to be doing instead is, sending their administrators into these choice programs to see what's working. How can we be getting more efficient use of our tax dollars? Instead, they just want to end it because it proves the lie that more money is needed. Right.
So in Milwaukee, just so everybody understands what they're trying to take apart, in Milwaukee, Black and Hispanic students comprise 86% of the Milwaukee Parental School Choice Program. In Racine, that number is about 66% Black and Hispanic kids. So these are the Black and brown children that the teachers union and Francesca Hong want to take out of the environments that is helping them catch up 2 years extra on education. 2 extra years because they qualify for those school choice programs.
Yeah, you think these candidates are out there saying there's the Republicans are racist. We're the candidates that are for minorities. I'd invite these candidates to go visit some of these choice schools, talk to the parents, and tell them they want to rob them of their opportunity for a better life. It's really no different than what we saw with George Wallace, another Democrat in the 1960s, standing in the schoolhouse door, denying folks the opportunity to go to college. We see the same thing today. They're standing in the schoolhouse door to protect teachers' unions from the evidence that they could be doing a better job for a lower cost.
By the way, I'll also say in the Wisconsin program, generally speaking, 51% statewide, and this is in a state that's 85%, 90% white, but 51% are Black and Hispanic students in the statewide program. You're talking about the majority of children benefiting from these extra years of education are Black and brown children. Black and brown children. So let's talk about some of the lies that they tell about school choice. You don't cream the crop, do you? You can't say, hey, let's test and see where you are in reading. We'll let you in with a voucher, but we won't let the kid who doesn't know his ABCs in with a voucher. That's illegal. You can't do that. So no crop creaming. In fact, the parental choice programs actually tend to take kids at the lower end of academic achievement.
Yep, that's right. That's what we found in this research, that the first 1 or 2 years, depending on the program, they might be negative results relative to their public school peers. And that, again, it makes sense because you don't change schools generally. Of course, there are exceptions. If you're satisfied with what you're getting from your current school, they're struggling for whatever reason. It could be bullying. It could be the way the teacher is teaching the classes just doesn't work for this kid. But they're changing schools because they're dissatisfied with some aspect. And it takes, often a year or two to make up for those to make up for those losses, and then we can begin to see gain.
Here's the other thing. When you're coming out of Milwaukee, when you're coming out of Racine, when you're coming out of problem schools, and you are now in a competent school that demands discipline, the adjustment is going to be difficult. Not to mention, you're behind the other kids academically. So you need to catch up. Now, not only do these kids catch up, they exceed their K-12 peers. That's the thing that's important about this study, because the kids going into these programs, particularly in Milwaukee and Racine, are kids who are behind. And by the time they're there for 4 years, they are ahead by 2 extra years. What we're talking about, the gap that got closed by the school choice school, is bigger than even your study is reckoning, I think, because of the disadvantage those kids are in the first place, coming out of disastrous school environments into competent school environments. And so they're going to initially, in the first year or two, be measured against kids who are already at competency.
Yep, you're right. If you go from the negative to the positive, we're talking about 3 years of gains for these
Amazing.
kids. So it's a tremendous amount of change, right? It's hard to convey. I know, folks don't like always dealing with numbers, but just think about if you could have a kid that could skip 2 years ahead in school and be on grade level. That's essentially what we're talking about here. We're catching kids up in these programs that are way behind initially, and then pulling them way ahead by the time that we're done with the data. And maybe it's even more if we had even more years of data.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not like K-12, like Jill Underley is saying, what is the school choice program doing that's so successful? Why do they seem to have such success? You would think at this point that somebody in the traditional K-12 system would say, we're going to model after these schools and why these schools are successful. And I bet you they would start with classroom discipline. That's my guess, is that one of the major issues, and you also studied this as well, when you looked at what the teachers are saying, my classroom is chaos. My classroom is dangerous. I'll have 1 or 2 or 4 disruptors, and the entire class has to be beholden to the disruption that those kids who cannot be disciplined. We are not permitted to discipline them. They get to disrupt the classroom. That impacts everybody. Why not look at what's going on in the private schools that are voucher schools and say, what if we did that as a model instead?
Yeah, when we talk to these teachers, some of them are now in private schools, and they'll tell you why did they leave, often for less pay, is because the environment was untenable. The environment was impossible to teach. It was even dangerous for the teacher to be in. If the teacher can't teach in that environment, then the students can't learn in that environment. And you're absolutely right. These teachers will often say that it's a night and day difference in terms of the expectations for behavior, in terms of the ability for punishments to be laid out when kids misbehave. Public schools, again, they want to coddle the kids. They want to blame, an IEP in some instances for things that aren't related to the IEP. They want to go through bureaucratic paperwork rather than disciplining students. Choice in charter schools as well, oftentimes. It's a much more strict discipline policy, makes it better for teachers, and teachers can do a better job as well.
Yes.
When they're not facing constant threats.
I think that's that part of the problem as well, is that it's not that teachers suck so bad. It's that the environment is so untenable that it becomes difficult to do your job. People need to go to will-law.org, because I'm telling you, this movement to try to, get people to, to reject school choice, which saves money and produces just almost overnight, but you got to be there for a bit, 2 extra years of achievement. And if you count how far back they were, it's probably closer to 3 years of catch up in a very short period of time. If people knew that, they'd want more of it. But what these movements are trying to do is to get people to think that they're paying too much money for a program this successful when it costs so much less than K-12.
Absolutely. And I'll also mention this study is peer-reviewed, so this isn't some right-wing plot. We actually went through the academic peer review process with this data, so it's something that's going to be much more challenging for the media to assail as just some right-wing agenda.
Exactly.
It's gone through the peer review process.
Will Flanders, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing the work.
Thank you. Have a great day.